So my name is Jamie and I am English. I moved here when I was about 10 years old. I really like football, probably because I'm English, and I really like music, all things music. I play drums and I play the guitar, and yeah, if there's a moment of silence in my car, it's filled with music. I have been involved in Gracegate for probably about 15 years, all up. So about half of my life. And I started volunteering in the worship team at first, and then kind of got involved in a few other areas like fuel, actually, in a voluntary capacity for a while. And then a couple of years ago, started working here full-time as a mentor in the youth and young adult spaces, and also the music director. It was Mum who invited me to Gracegate at first, because she heard of an opportunity to play the drums in the worship team. So way back then, Charissa was also still very heavily involved in worship, and she let Mum know that they were looking for musicians, drummers especially. And so at the time, I definitely wasn't interested in church. But it sounded like a really cool opportunity to play the drums with some people in a live setting. And so I thought, hey, that actually sounds pretty cool. Why don't I go along, see what it's all about? I could take or leave the church stuff, but I'm quite keen to play in a band, and have a bit of fun. In high school, I would definitely have described myself as like a total atheist. I would have been the first person to tell you that there is no God. God's not real. Mainly because I was very logical and logic driven, and I loved facts and figures, and I was good at science and maths. And so the concept of a God really contradicted a lot of my fundamental perspectives in the world, where I needed cold hard evidence for something to be true. And for me at the time, I had a lot of questions around whether there could be a God if there's all this science around, the Big Bang Theory, or carbon dating the age of the Earth, or human evolution, which we were learning about in school at the time. And so a lot of those things didn't make sense with this idea of a God, and I couldn't reconcile the two together. Serving 100% was a massive vessel, I guess, for discovering more about who God was, because I definitely stepped into that serving space before I believed. But interestingly, through that serving space is where I started asking more questions, and I started also observing kind of how these people at church were living their lives. And it sparked a lot of questions in my mind, because I was like, they're clearly believing something that I don't believe, but they're also clearly happier for it. And so why is it that these people are so happy? And almost like, how can I have that? And so I definitely asked a lot more questions through serving. I think my faith truly went from a head knowledge to a heart knowledge in uni, because I'd done this whole schooling career thing where I was going to be a doctor, and I'd picked all my subjects throughout high school, and I'd done all the sciences, and I'd done biology, and got into uni and I did biomedical science, and that was like the next logical progression at every step, was to become a doctor. But I realized pretty quickly into that first year that that's not how I wanted to live the rest of my life. And so I got to a point where I decided to drop out of university, and that really threw me, to be honest, because I'd spent all these years in high school building up to this career pathway, and then by my own decision making, it was gone. And so I was kind of left in this really odd space that I'd never been in before in my life, which was, who am I, essentially, and what am I here for? Because until that point, I had a really clear plan. And then that plan kind of went out the window. And so I was in this real limbo state, I guess, where, I'd wondered, where do I fit into the world a little bit, and what's next for me? I'd heard a lot about God still from serving, and I kind of knew that maybe He was there. This had been a really slow process, and so I kind of gave it a go, and I kind of called out to Him. And then I remember this intense sense of peace off the back of that. It's the power of hindsight that makes me realize that actually I think that was truly the peace of God, which I know now from the Bible transcends all understanding. There have been so many times I can think of where I've had to really take a step back and realize that I can only do so much myself, and there is a God there who can and wants to support me in that. I have had a really interesting relationship with baptism over the years. I actually chatted about it with Wes probably 5 or even 7 years ago now, because he was like, "Hey man, you've been volunteering and you clearly believe what you believe, and that's awesome. Why don't you take the next step?" And so we did some baptism studies actually, but there was always a small part of me that kind of, I don't know if it was doubt or if it just wasn't a full sense of satisfaction with all of those answers to the questions that I had. And so I kind of dismissed it. I pushed it to the side. I sat on it for ages. And then over time, my faith has continued to grow in that. And so I truly believe that my faith is a lot stronger now than it was when I was having those conversations about baptism years ago. But I guess one of the catalysts for it being now was chatting to one of our fuelies, one of our high schoolers recently, who's also looking at taking the next step. And the way that he was describing his faith to me, I actually found really inspiring. And I kind of got to this point where I was like, why am I still sitting on this decision after all this time? Like, I'm living my life this way. I genuinely believe what I believe. I work in a church. Like, it's no secret that I believe there's a God. It's no secret that I believe that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. But why have I still not taken that step? And I genuinely, the reason I think that is because it was such a long, slow burn. I didn't have that defining moment in my life where some cataclysmic event happened and then God stepped in and saved the day. Those stories are out there and they happen, and that's awesome, but that's not what happened in my life. And I think for the longest time, I had that expectation that almost needed to happen in order to make the decision to be baptized. Not everybody has those stories, and that's awesome. Everyone's got a different story, right? And I think for me to sit here and wait for this moment of eruption in my life so that God can come in and save the day before getting baptized is doing a disservice to my faith. I think I've really had to learn how to be okay with the fact that it's all right to not know everything. And there will always be questions that go unanswered. The beautiful thing about faith is that it's purely built on trust. And you kind of almost, I don't know if this is the right thing to say or not, but you kind of can't have faith if you're operating 100% on fact. It says it in Hebrews, right? Faith is assurance of what we don't see. It's confidence in what we hope for. Two people who've been massive in my life have been both Wes and Giles as well. I mean, both of them at a period of time have been my youth leader when I was in school, and then shortly after school as well. The conversations we would have and the time that they would give up for me, and the intentionality in investing into my life and my faith. I am where I am today in that because of them, and because of the way that they invested in me. So massive thank you to them, truly. I really do want to genuinely thank my mum and Charissa for opening that door to having me get involved at Gracegate because again, I didn't believe, and it would have been quite easy to write me off as someone who wasn't appropriate to join the team because I didn't believe in God. And yet it is through my serving, I think, that my faith grew. So asking the question and making that available truly, I think, was like the first stepping stone for where I am in my faith today. Today, I have decided to get baptized because I truly believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And quite frankly, I want the whole world to know about it.